Hello everyone, welcome to Edline Academy of Science. From this video I am going to teach you about body symmetries of animals. Actually this is the second video of Basics of Biology video series. Let's start. Let's take the first important character, body symmetry. You should know some concepts and definition regarding the basic animal architecture. Arrangement of body appendages such as fins, limbs, tentacles, and antenna in relation to the body axis is known as animal architecture. The overall shape of the animal can be described by its body symmetry and the architecture. Let's look at the types of body symmetries in animals. There are three different types. The first one is asymmetry, second one is radial symmetry, third one is bilateral symmetry. The first type of symmetry that you are going to learn is asymmetry. The body of the asymmetrical animal is not symmetrical. Importantly, they do not have any plane of symmetry. When we cut the asymmetrical body of an animal into two halves, the resultant two halves are not identical to each other. Let's look at some examples of asymmetry. A means no symmetry. The first example is the members of porifera. Most of the poriferans are asymmetrical forms except very few young sponges like cycon. They do not possess any true tissues. Just take a look at this colony. This is the cycon colony. It has three individuals. We are unable to get two identical halves if we cut this colony along any of these axes. So this is a good example for asymmetry. As I mentioned earlier, the body symmetry and origin of true tissues occur simultaneously. According to this idea, poriferans shouldn't have any true tissues. Take a look at this diagram. This is a sponge cycon, and if you cut a small pieces of body wall and enlarge, you will get something like this. So this body wall has three layers: outer pinacoderm layer, an inner choanoderm layer, in between mesoglia. If you take pinacoderm, it consists of single layers of cells which covers the body of the sponge. An innermost choanoderm layer is also single cell layer which covers the wall of the spongocoel or internal cavity. Under these two layers, pinacoderm layer and choanoderm layer, we are unable to see any basement membrane. So these are actually not true tissues, they are just cell layers. So poriferans, they do not have a symmetrical body as well as they do not have true tissues. Let's take another example for asymmetrical animals. This time I am going to take example from phylum Placozoa. Placozoans are flat and transparent animals. The size of the animal is less than 3 mm in diameter. The first species was discovered in 1883 and the rest of the species were found recently. So this phylum Placozoa has one family and three genera, and each of these genera has a species. All Placozoans are free living forms and they are found from the aquarium but not from the natural habitats. So basically, Placozoans are also asymmetrical animals. Their body is not symmetrical. The shape of the body is round and it has upper and lower surfaces. Their body consists of several thousands of cells and cilia, and these cells belong to four kinds, and those four types are cover cells, gland cells, fiber cells, and cylinder cells. Placosomes do not have any true tissues or any true systems. Because of that, they are known as the simplest forms of all multicellular animals. Take a look at this diagram. This is a placosome, and the name of the species is Trichoplex. It has two surfaces, upper surface and lower surface, and you can see the animal with its cilia. Cilia covers all over the body, and if you cut this animal along any axis, you are unable to get two identical halves. So this is another good example for asymmetry. Let's take symmetrical animals. Except asymmetrical poriferans and placosomes, rest of the animals have symmetrical bodies. Who are those animals? Cnidarians, ctenophores, platyhelminthes, nematodes, annelids, arthropods, mollusks, echinoderms, and chordates. These animals either have radial symmetry or bilateral symmetry. Let's take radial symmetry. The appendage of these animals are arranged around the central axis of the body. As such, any plane that cut through the central axis of the animal form two mirror images. The examples for the radial symmetrical animals are cnidarians like sea anemone and jellyfishes, or ctenophores like comb jellies, and echinoderms like starfish. Now I am going to show you one example for radial symmetry. So it's Metridium, which belongs to phylum Cnidaria. So Metridium or sea anemone has column-shaped body, and around the mouth it has several tentacles. If we cut this animal along any of these axes, we are able to get two identical halves. However, some radial symmetrical animals are slightly modified. As such, a very few planes are able to divide them into two mirror images. Now I am going to talk about modified radial symmetrical animals. For this, I am going to take one example, that is adult starfish. The name of the species is Asteris. Just take a look at this diagram. This is starfish. It has 5 arms and a central disc. Over here, the central disc is not visible. If you cut this animal along any of these 5 axes, you will be able to get two mirror images. But if you cut this animal along any other axis, you are unable to get two mirror images. So as such, this type of symmetry is known as penta-radial symmetry. Some of the radial symmetrical animals are sessile, which means they are attached to the substrate, like sea anemone or adult sponges. Rest of the radial symmetrical animals are able to move slowly but efficiently in any direction, like starfishes. The very important thing to remember is radial symmetrical animals do not have distinct anterior or the posterior ends. Now you are going to learn about bilateral symmetrical animals. Bilateral symmetry is the animal's body can be divided into two identical halves through a single plane which passes through the midline or the central line of the body. Take a look at this diagram. This is a frog. It belongs to phylum Chordata and class Amphibia. We can divide the body of this frog into two identical halves along this midline. There is no other line that can divide animal into two identical halves. So this is a good example for bilaterally symmetrical animal. The important feature of bilaterally symmetrical animals is that they have distinct anterior end and posterior end. The most of the sensory organs like tympanum, eyes, nostrils are located at the anterior end. I am going to teach you about true tissues from my next video. Please hit the subscribe button. In that way you will never miss my next videos. Please comment what you have learned today from this video. I will reply them as soon as I can. Thank you.